Thanksgiving, right here every Tuesday. TomHanksgiving, come on and press play. There's Elvis, the host with the most, yada 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 yada. With a different guest each week, they're the smart ones. Each episode's a new movie about Tom Hanks, the man himself. Of course, it's time for TomHanksgiving. It's the best you can get. It's the rootinest, tootinest podcast on the internet. TomHanksgiving.
Howdy, partner, and happy TomHanksgiving. It's me, Elvis, your editor-in-chief for the podcast, and today we are back out of our Hanksprenation semi-retirement to discuss 2017's brand new Steven Spielberg directed movie, The Post, starring Meryl Streep, Tom Hanks, Bob Odenkirk, David Cross, Alison Brie, Matthew Rhys, Tracy Letts, Bradley Whitford, a whole lot of other people, and written by Liz Hanna and Josh Singer. The movie is released on December 22nd, so this should be coming out right as it comes out or just after for all of you who have hopefully watched it. And today I am joined by our special guest and returning guest from the Happy Days episode, Jon Marquis.
Hello, and thanks for having me back after jumping the shark.
So how have you been?
I've been good. I recently went to New Orleans, and I basically planned my New Orleans trip around Tom Hanks because of you.
That's right. Describe why.
I had booked a week-long trip to New Orleans for a conference, and then I mentioned it to you. We're roommates. Mm-hmm. When I said the date, you were like, "You're gonna miss TomHanksgiving."
Yes, not the podcast, but the holiday.
Yes. And so I was like, "Oh crap,
can't do that.
Can't miss TomHanksgiving." So I changed my flight, and then for my return flight, I had to make sure I got back before a special screening of The Post.
Yes.
That I invited you to, because Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg and other guests were going to be there for a Q&A.
Oh my god. And so yes, it's true. We went and it was great, and I've seen Tom Hanks twice now this year, which means probably the next time I see him he'll be on the podcast. So we're getting closer.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, wow. We finished the regular run of the show back in the summertime, and we've had this is the third episode we've had since we've been on semi-retirement. And we're at the tail end of 2017, and good gosh, was this a tough year. How about what is happening in the world?
Well, Taylor Swift said she couldn't have asked for a better year.
That's true.
Yeah.
I feel like she's doing a very poor job of reading the room.
But
I'm happy for Taylor Swift. Everybody else, it feels like it's been a struggle.
Yes.
I think probably the number one thing dominating the media right now is what a fellow podcast, The Daily Zeitgeist, referred to as Benghazi. Which is just this oversaturation of all of these powerful celebrity men, usually in pop culture or entertainment or politics, being
a lot of
it's everywhere.
Like the Olympic gymnastics was it doctor or coach?
I'm not sure. And then there was obviously the celebrity chef, but he kind of leans into the entertainment industry too. But it's happening everywhere is the problem, but it's getting the spotlight in these areas specifically. Sexual assault allegations are coming out, and people are going fucking down. Like Kevin Spacey famously got replaced in All the Money in the World, which you saw recently, right?
Yes, I won't say anything.
That's fine.
That.
That's fine. I will say that the trailer is aggressively obnoxious, but I have not seen the movie. And it's going down, and it even happened to John Lasseter. He had allegations come out about sort of a domineering presence in the workplace and creating a hostile environment, and he referred to them as unwanted hugs. And the whole thing just reeked of there's more to the story here that's not... Yeah. It's probably not that I want to go into degrees of what's worse, but it's probably not like as bad as a Spacey or a Louis C.K. situation, but it's not good.
Right.
And he stepped down from Pixar, and we put out a statement on our Twitter at Tom Hanks Pod about it. And it's just been it's been an uncomfortable year because we're remorseful for these artists that are being taken down.
Yeah.
Now they deserve to be punished and have consequences for their actions. It's just uncomfortable at how it's not a secret that this is the sort of reality that's been happening forever, but it's uncomfortable to be faced with it. But it's a good thing that we're being faced with it because we're seeing some actual consequences, and it's
silence is being broken.
Exactly, and that's a good thing. But how this ties into Tom Hanks specifically is he kind of remains the one focal point of like, oh, no, he's a good guy in Hollywood. Yeah. He's not going to be a fucking bastard. And like there was like a week there where it was just like every day someone was coming out. And that was the John Lasseter week. And I was like, we just have to make it to the post. We just have to make it through TomHanksgiving.
Yeah, where you like counted down the days or it's just like, okay, just this many days, nothing can come out about Tom Hanks, and we're still a go on Tom Hanks.
Yeah, otherwise we have a lot of people coming to our house and we can't watch any of these movies.
Be sad.
Yeah, not that I have faith that Tom Hanks will not come out about him, but it's also just like it's uncomfortable because you think that about so many of these people, and but I think it's funny that Tom Hanks has taken on this role within this larger story as like the one guy, or there's even joke articles coming out about more women are reporting that Tom Hanks is like a really nice guy on set, or it goes the other way and it's like he's murdered 7,000 people, but everybody still likes him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you haven't seen him like shit the bed in interviews like the way Matt Damon did recently.
Oh my god, Matt Damon! I wanted to punch him in the face just for the downsizing trailer I keep saying, but especially, I mean, and this isn't the first time Damon said shit like this too, which I think is noticeable because for all of these people that stuff's coming out, it's like you've heard or they've said stupid things in the past that it leads to this, and that's never really been the case for Tom Hanks. So I'm just very happy that he remains this positive figurehead we can keep, and so this podcast can keep going, and it doesn't die a very sad death.
And also, no women were harmed in
More
the
importantly,
interaction with Tom Hanks.
or in general, yes, because there's so few positive male role models in the world right now. We need the Tom Hankses of the world. But we're in this year, crazy new political discourse where pedophiles are going up against politicians who seem to be, he
prosecuted
fucking KKK people, and there's like, thank God he won the election, but like I didn't think he was going to after the whole year we've had with Trump and his base just not, believing any of the things, and how he's basically corrupted the media and has created this sense of he's the sense of distrust in the media, and he's going to combat the press, and that was a very familiar place to start when we started watching The Post.
Yes.
At that very special screening. What would you say The Post is about?
Okay, so The Post is basically, it surrounds the Washington Post decision to publish the Pentagon Papers.
And what are the Pentagon Papers?
Okay. I'm glad you asked.
Without going into full detail. Well, actually, before we do that, so The Post, it's about the Pentagon Papers coming out, and the Washington Post and the failing New York Times, their kind of mutual efforts to publish them and get this story out about the government's information on and feelings about the truth behind the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And it focuses on Catherine K. Graham, who is the first female newspaper publisher and took over for her late husband, who was taking over for her father, for the Washington Post, and also her the newspaper editor, Ben Bradley, who is played by Tom Hanks. Kay Graham is played by Meryl Streep. And it's their kind of efforts to overcome this challenge to authority that President Nixon kind of put in place about publishing these papers. But tell us more about what these papers are actually about. We're going to get a history lesson from John here.
Okay, so the Pentagon Papers, they were commissioned by Robert McNamara, and it was stated in the movie that like they were for the future purposes of like research, and so he didn't want them out now, but they were like they're very forthcoming about like the motivations and actions behind the Vietnam War, like going back to the Truman administration.
Yeah, it was like decades. And how many different presidents was...
I mean, Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon.
Jeez.
So,
yeah, that's frightening.
and
when you put it like that.
basically, it was often in direct opposition to what these presidents said to the American people. And so, and one of the authors of the Pentagon Papers was Daniel Ellsberg, who had served in Vietnam, and he was a policy expert. He was a strategic analyst for the Rand Corporation, and he just became an increasingly outspoken critic of the war. And he just couldn't have it on his conscience knowing these things. So
he does like a heist. He steals all the papers.
yeah,
basically.
I mean, like he had copies.
Yeah.
He just snuck them out and got them Xeroxed by the founder of the Palm Corporation.
The Palm Corporation?
I don't know if she's the founder.
Oh, but the drink, right?
Yeah, the Palm.
Oh my god, that's so weird.
Yeah, when I was like buying like juices recently, I was like, should I try kombucha or should I like go? Because I remember I heard something about like the person who owns the Palm Company doing something really good, and it's like, oh yeah, either Spielberg, or Tom Hanks talked about how.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Linda Resnick, like she actually helped Xerox the Pentagon Papers,
Right.
And so it's like, yeah, I should buy Palm.
So this episode of TomHanksgiving is sponsored by Palm.
Although they use a lot of water and contribute to the drought, apparently.
Well,
not
nobody's
everyone
perfect.
is great.
But back to Daniel Ellsberg, who's played by Matthew Rhys.
It's so great in The Americans. I love him.
He makes these copies, takes them out, and he submits them to the Times and eventually the Post.
Yes.
And that's how this breaks.
Well, I don't think he submits them to the Post. Well, he does later. Yeah,
in the movie. Well, I guess it's a get a phone tag with Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah, and then like, because there's that one scene where like the woman just drops it at the guy's desk.
Oh yes.
The woman played by Sasha Spielberg.
Ah, good old Sasha.
Yeah. So yeah, where were we?
But these papers led to court trials about the First Amendment and what the freedom of the press actually challenging those barriers, those boundaries, and it eventually led and built up to the Watergate scandal. Correct?
Like I don't know. Like I mean, certainly the Post.
The film builds to that point.
Yeah, and the Washington Post broke the Watergate scandal.
Yes.
So
it's kind
in
of
a way, because they had. Probably because of that court decision and the fact that publishing the Pentagon Papers was successful in that way, they had the freedom to let's publish this story on the Watergate scandal,
which led to the resignation of Nixon and a whole good thing for the government.
Yeah. I'm not in that chapter of Nixon yet, so I can't.
But that's
say
okay.
anything.
But that's the chapter after the Post. But in that way, you can really look at the Pentagon Papers and the Post, the film, as sort of this origin story for Katharine Graham and the Post itself as this tool for the people, the citizens of the United States, to challenge their government and get to the truth of things. And I think to dive into the movie a bit, I think it's maybe the most optimistic story about America specifically I felt all year. Like maybe the only one I felt all year.
Well, I saw Hamilton the night Doug Jones got elected, so
that's a twofer right there.
Yeah. Post is up there.
I mean, it was just nice for a moment to be like, oh. Things can be building to something, and that's the thing, especially with the Q&A with Spielberg. There, it was very obvious. Like they made this movie because of what's happening right now. This is a 2017 movie.
It was a quick turnaround for this movie.
Yeah, he shot it after he shot Ready Player One, but it came out before.
Yeah,
and it was because we need to get this out now.
I think it was 9 months, and like from start to finish,
So,
pretty much.
Yeah, so is it too optimistic to assume that now that when the post comes out proper, because we're still in the pre-release stage,
Yes.
that will lead to the resignation of Donald Trump? Just like the post led to the resignation of Richard Nixon?
No, I think we have to give credit to journalists who are
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
fighting this attack on free press, like, every step of the way.
But wouldn't it have been great? Tom Hanks defeats Donald Trump
Yeah.
with Meryl Streep. Oh, that's the headline I want to see. Any newspaper will do. Let's talk about the nitty gritty of the movie. What did you think? What did you like?
Let's see. Well, when people ask about it, I basically tell them it's solidly Spielberg. Certain nitpicky things I could say, and we'll probably talk about those.
Yeah, like specifically the beginning is the weakest part of the movie, and you have a great point about the Vietnam sequence.
It's just like, I understand, like, it's not a Vietnam War movie.
No.
And they want to have a Vietnam shorthand, but really, Credence.
Spielberg always gets this criticism in a lot of his films for being too on the nose.
Yeah.
I think, especially with where the state of the world is right now, being on the nose is maybe a good thing. But that choice, even though I'm not a musical guy, I can see where you're coming from. That was a little much.
Yeah.
For me, the Vietnam sequence, which opens the movie, it just feels it's so prologue-y, it's so perfunctory that it's like you could cut this off.
Yeah.
And just like, it wasn't a bad sequence in the making of itself, but we've seen army sequences done so much better from Spielberg.
Yeah.
But is this his first Vietnam scene that he's ever directed? Because everything else seems to be Cold War, World War II. As best as I can recall, I don't think he's ever done a Vietnam War
I don't think he has.
scene or even a movie in that period. So in that way, I'm glad it's in the Spielberg canon. Just for that, it's kind of neat. But it was, it didn't do anything. It didn't hold a candle to any of his previous war scenes. Not that it needed to. Again, it was a perfunctory scene. But I think my least favorite scene of the movie, it was really just a stylistic choice, was when they were Xeroxing all the Pentagon papers. And it looked like some 90s TV show where they're like going through all the newspapers, like I'm like trying to figure out the mystery, and just looks so boring with like superimposed scanning and heads, and then the reading out loud of the documents.
Thing, like, Daniel Ellsberg would not just be like reading quotes from this thing he's read and like written part of.
Like it was a cheesy ass choice. It did its job, which Spielberg always manages to. Clarity is kind of his greatest talent, and of course manipulation of your emotions. But the movie really didn't. It really came into focus as soon as we met Meryl Streep playing Katharine Graham in that first board meeting scene.
Oh yeah,
and it's like, this is what the movie. It clicked for me then. It's really the heart of the movie. It's not Tom Hanks' story, and it's another very 2017 thing, and why we spent the whole front of the show talking about this Benghazi thing. Because she's this first female publisher, and none of the old white guys around her are listening to her, and she even doubts herself and has this trouble speaking up in meetings, and it just endears you to her. If she wasn't Meryl Streep, it would even do it, but gosh darn.
I know that Meryl Streep.
Yeah, what did you think of Meryl Streep in the movie?
She was very good. Like, I can't criticize Meryl Streep.
No. My favorite Seinfeld joke is, that Meryl Streep, she's such a phony baloney. No, I mean, it's like Meryl Streep in many ways is the female Tom Hanks, or perhaps Tom Hanks is the female Meryl Streep. I hate to kind of do the typical thing where it's like we would nominate her because of course she's great.
Yeah,
but
it's like,
is it her best performance? No.
It's
obviously not, but it's a really good performance.
Yeah, it's like, it would, like, assuming she gets nominated, it's a worthy nomination.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think what she brings to the role that really, I don't know, did something for me was this ability to convey how smart she was, and how capable Katharine Graham is, but the believability of her reservations and her self-doubt. And specifically the stuff where she's conflicted by like betraying her friendships with these high figures and pursuing the truth, and that's kind of the crux of the movie.
A classic difficult decision.
Yes, she's good at those.
Yeah.
She's really good at those.
Yeah, I can't think of a specific example.
Yeah.
Like
Maybe Mamma Mia.
Yeah, I could see that.
Mm-hmm. What do you think was her strongest scene?
I think on those like phone calls when she like has to make the decision. Well, since we already talked about the boardroom scene, I think that was the scene that sort of like put you in her shoes.
Yeah.
But then when she has to make like this decision onto whether to publish or not, like such a like a cheer moment when she finally does it, and like all the building up to it.
And even like the way Spielberg just kind of constructs that she gets on the phone is like a victory in itself, and then she's like telling people to get off the phone. It's like it's my house. And she's like she's so close. She's getting closer and closer to taking control of the situation. And then when she does, it's total victory. And in that classic, solid Spielberg way, as you put it, where you're on his ride and you feel that sense of we're gonna take this risk, and it's such a win.
There's also one scene that kind of stuck out. That was like Katharine Graham was going, I believe, to the Supreme Court, and a woman who's on the prosecution against her.
Oh yeah.
Like comes up to her and is like, I just want to know, I support like what you've done, and like I forget exactly what.
Yeah. She looks. She's like totally. It's this young intern for the opposing the prosecution.
Yeah.
But she just looks up to Katharine Graham as this role model, and it's like, if my boss saw me, he would fire me, kill me on the spot. And she like lets Kay Graham in through like the back way because so she doesn't have to go in through all the gateway or whatever, the security checks and whatnot. And it's just this great moment, and that's kind of the message of the movie.
Yeah.
When stripped of all of the grander political landscape stuff, it's about this awesome woman challenging the patriarchy and inspiring other women to do the same. And that's kind of, I think, why the spark that Liz Hannah brought to this movie.
Yeah, and also there was like Sarah Paulson's one speech where she was talking to Ben, and like I think he wanted just like his wife to tell him like, oh, you're so brave for doing this, and then she's like, well, who's the brave one?
Yes, it's Kay, yeah. And it's like she's putting everything on the line, and that's that's the thing. It's like we've kind of, I feel bad because I feel like we haven't given that aspect of the movie enough of its due, and I think part of that is how deftly it's woven into the narrative by Spielberg's direction and by the writing.
Yeah.
It's so, like, everybody's talking about how it's so on the nose and in your face with Spielberg, but, like, he does it in a way where it just makes so much sense that you don't even question it, in a way.
I will say, at that point, I did feel like that speech might have been a little too on the nose, but maybe it stuck out because I was just, like, waiting for Sarah Paulson to do something the whole time, because it's like, you better not just be in the wife role.
Every time someone is like, this is too on the nose, I just think about like, have you seen the media literacy of a lot of Americans today? We kind of need to be on the nose. We need to be blunt and didactic. And I was really glad that we got both of those moments specifically, which again are both like in your face about what they are, but it's I guess it's the Spielberg genuineness, the lack of cynicism that fills the rest of the movie, that they don't feel out of place.
Yeah. And also maybe it feels on the nose because of the times we're in. Like they didn't like when they were making this movie, like all this stuff hadn't come out.
The allegations weren't coming out and breaking.
They didn't like quite realize the exact storm they would be in when this comes out.
Yeah. Tom Hanks has had 2 feature films come out this year. One of them has been good. I enjoyed The Circle, but that was a movie that it was messy, and it kind of got lost in its execution and its metaphors. But strangely enough, both of them were so like strangely prophetic about 2017 in a way that was unexpected. The Circle just being about how companies are just like consuming all of our privacy, and we're just kind of losing all of that. And then obviously this movie with its bizarre propheticness of women going up against being the true brave acts going up against this system against them.
Although, can you call like a period piece like prophetic, because it is based in history and it is sort of like...
But I think prophetic only in the sense of how you were putting it. Like when they made it, they didn't realize how resonant today it would be.
But there are always just so many parallels between history and today that we just never learn.
History
and we need to.
Is doomed to repeat itself. So Meryl Streep is fantastic in this movie. That's like the least necessary thing ever said, but it should be said and celebrated.
Yes.
And we also have Tom Hanks in this movie.
We do.
The reason we're here.
Oh, that's why we're here?
It is, in fact. And he's, like we said before, Meryl's the heart of this movie. But how would you characterize Ben Bradley in terms of what his function in the story is? He's not the antagonist, but he is kind of the clash of philosophy. So he kind of works as an antagonistic force to Katharine Graham's reservations about pursuing the truth.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So I guess, in that way, Kay Graham is the classic protagonist in the sense of she has to overcome an internal and an external force to kind of change her perspective. But Ben Bradley is a constant throughout. He's always on the right. He's kind of, in a way, he's a little bit of a mentor figure, but in the sense that his arc is just like, I don't want to say it's flat, but it's like he's a steadfast character. He believes in what he believes in, and he convinces other people around them that that's the right thing to do. And I think that's a great way for Tom Hanks. It's a great role for Tom Hanks to play, because that's kind of what he's been for this podcast. Yeah. He's like, yes, Tom Hanks is the steadfast one good thing in this world, and he's going to continue to change us.
Yeah.
To be better people. So perfect casting. And Tom Hanks had actually known Ben Bradley and been maybe not a close friend, but friendly with him and met him, and that really went into his performance, which was great because he got really Hanksy hammy with his voice. He did kind of an impression.
Hanksent.
Because he was like, you got to be on the papers, kid. Yeah. Here, where's our intern? Go down to the New York Times. Don't tell him why you're there.
Yeah. And it is kind of strange to watch him after recently seeing All the President's Men, because Jason Robards plays Ben Bradley.
Right.
And Jason Robards is fantastic. And so, like, not knowing what Ben Bradley is like in person, I'm, like, comparing it to Jason Robards, but, like, as the sort of, like, figure I recognize as Ben Bradley.
The icon Ben Bradley. So I wonder if that means the Tom Hanks Ben Bradley is a closer depiction to reality.
I have no idea.
We can only speculate, but the fact that they knew each other is probably a good... I mean, he did a voice for a reason. I think his hair was really interesting. Because Tom Hanks does not have straight hair. The only real time he tried to pull off straight hair was Da Vinci Code.
Oh God!
And that hair
is better in the post.
It's good. It's good. It actually, but it still looks a little unnatural.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking it must. There's obviously work done with the hair department, but was it even like a piece?
I don't know.
It's hard to tell because he has such a close cut haircut now in general. So I think it might have been a really nice wig, but it looked good.
Yeah.
It was a shocking Hanks to see. And honestly, this is maybe just my theory because I kind of have curly hair, is that there's something about like having like a nice straight hair that's like an easy constructed like shape that I feel like it gives you a confidence that is just like, it's there. It's probably not true, but there's a part of me that's like, if I only had straight hair, I'd be like, on the money.
I've never known about this curly hair, straight hair jealousy thing.
It's a thing. I think, and I think it's because maybe just specifically for me, because I don't think curly hair is any worse, but it's like, it's harder to draw. And I think because of that, it's harder. It's a less striking shape and silhouette, and I think that's why even in real life it's like a harsher line, so it kind of comes across as a stronger authority. Okay. And I think that's kind of what we got out of Tom Hanks as Ben Bradley, because usually he's a little bit more affable, he's a little bit more flawed perhaps in his like leading roles when he has his Hanks hair. But here, like again, Ben Bradley, he's the voice of reason. He's your coach, man. He has the fire in him. He's right, and he's pushing you. And you want to do it for him.
Making me realize I also have to grapple with straight hair privilege now.
But it's kind of got some waves to it.
If it gets long, it gets curly.
Yeah, there's shape to it. I mean, the other thing is like straight hair can be boring if you don't do anything with it. But I think it's easier to make shapes out of it. Curly hair is kind of like it's not bad looking, but there's only like one thing you can do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's enough about Tom Hanks' hair in this movie. Although very important.
Yes.
This is another instance of Tom Hanks playing kind of more of a supporting role, and I think obviously I love him in his lead roles, but he has so much to offer as a supporting character.
Yeah. And Spielberg knows how to use him as a supporting character.
Yes, he does.
Or like second lead.
Yeah, I mean that's really what this is. This is co-star. It's not truly supporting character. And in that sense, the Oscar nominations aren't out yet, obviously, but if he were to be nominated, it would be for Best Actor, not Best Supporting Actor. Yeah. So, that's to clarify that. But just the supporting in the sense that he's not the main character.
Yeah. But, man, the supporting cast in this movie is
fantastic. Let's jump down the roster.
All right. Well, you've named a bunch of them, but you even glossed over Bruce Greenwood.
Oh my God!
And
there's so many people in this movie.
Like Carrie Coon, Jesse Plemons,
Zach Woods.
Yeah, we got a lot.
I just personally, I was so delighted to see David Cross and Tom Hanks in this movie because when I went to see the Shakespeare performance on previous episode 65, David Cross was one of the cast members of that live performance. And I was like, I think we said on that episode, I want the David Cross Tom Hanks movie. And at that point, I didn't know that they had probably did that together because they had worked on The Post together. Yeah. So that was delightful to see.
With an additional Bob Odenkirk.
Right? And Bob
and David.
Yes. Bob Odenkirk has...
He's great.
He's got a large role in this movie. Yeah. It's fantastic. And
also as a Breaking Bad fan, it's great to see Jesse Plemons be a lawyer talking to Bob Odenkirk.
This is a significant movie for Tom Hanks because this is his entry to the Five Timers Club.
Oh,
for Steven Spielberg. He's only ever had
that reference.
Yes. He's tied now with Ron Howard, who has directed him in 5 movies. Okay. So now we have 2 directors he's worked with the most, and
until he cameos in Ron Howard's Star Wars movie.
Which will count.
Yeah.
And actually, Tom Hanks is now tied for the most time Steven Spielberg has directed one actor with Harrison Ford, who he's directed in all Indiana Jones movies, which is 4, but also, and I just found this out today when I was doing some research for the podcast, Harrison Ford was in a deleted scene in E.T.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's pretty crazy. But because of that, I think that means Hanks wins because he's been in all 5 movies.
All right.
Where does this one kind of sit? Let's do a little mini TomHanksgiving.
All right, let's do some ranking. I will say it's been a while since I've seen The Terminal, but I think that's going to be number 5.
I on that episode of the podcast, jumping all the way back to Spielberg month, which is 2, maybe 3 years ago now, I was not super hot on the movie. There's good stuff in there, and I might like it more on a rewatch, but not super. That's the number 5 spot.
Yeah.
For me, I think number 1 is always going to be Catch Me If You Can.
It's that and Saving Private Ryan are
Saving
in a
Private
battle because Catch Me If You Can is one of Spielberg's most rewatchable movies.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. Saving Private Ryan is a solid number 2, and it's great. I just think, in terms of my personality, I'm more inclined to enjoy a movie like Catch Me If You Can than Saving Private Ryan. And he's just fantastic and so funny as Carl
Yeah.
Hanratty. So it's really down to 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Bridge of Spies and The Post.
I think I'll put The Post as number 3.
Post is number 3. There was a minute there because
Yeah.
I've only seen Bridge of Spies once, and
Same
obviously
here.
recency bias with The Post. But when I thought about it this morning, it was The Post is a more significant story. Even though it's a lesser Hanks role, the fact that The Post ties into so much of what I'm constantly thinking about and facing in everyday life now in 2017, it's got to be number 3. It's Bridge of Spies is great. I'm a big defender of Bridge of Spies. People are like, it's boring. Spielberg, he's lost his touch. I think that's not true at all. It's great. It's just it has less relevance in my mind. What is your reason why it's number 3 and not number 4?
I think, I haven't seen Bridge of Spies since it came out, so it's been a few years. But I do remember being a little disappointed by it, but then, it kind of did remind, I did listen to the podcast about it.
Right, you're right.
And I was like, oh yeah, that was a great scene, And so, it did add a steam in my head, but at the same time, it's still, still not there when I'm like, yeah, I want to think about this great Steven Spielberg movie. I'm not going to think of Bridge of Spies.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. The 1 and 2 spots are very close.
Yeah.
The 3 and 4 spots are
Yeah.
very close. And then there's a bit of a gap between 4 and 5. And in terms of direction, do you think Spielberg brought anything new to the table? Because this was like he did his famous double directing duties within the span of a year with these movies, because he did all the shit for Ready Player One and then shot this super quickly, as we mentioned before. Was this just the machine of Spielberg, or did he actually get some new stuff in there? What
It felt kind of like machine Spielberg, I will say. It felt like he could have done this in his sleep, and that's not
That's not an.
That's not a
I think I
criticism.
agree with you.
it's
It's the same
it's
thing
an acknowledgement of his talent.
It's the same thing we said about Meryl Streep and even Tom Hanks.
Yeah,
It's they're
all 3
so
of them,
good.
you just you could put them in a movie, those 2 in a movie directed by Steven Spielberg, and it could be bad. But chances are, working with this material, they're not going to screw it up.
And I think, you know what, even though I still firmly place it in the number 3 spot, I think maybe that's my one significant pain with this movie, is that we finally got this combination of 3 of the most talented, just put the potential of putting a movie with Steven Spielberg as the director and Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep as the stars. This movie, it's almost it's a little bit of a letdown that it wasn't that much more. Am I wrong?
I'm kind of glad, it was, just such a quickly made movie.
I think that
in that
helps.
respect, because it's if there was, in production for 3 years, and it's this, huge
The
Tom
expectation
Hanks,
would be built
Meryl
up.
Streep blockbuster directed by Steven Spielberg, it would have been a letdown no matter what.
That's probably
Whereas this
true.
is-
But there's a slight longing there where it's this movie didn't come out and be the best movie ever.
Yeah.
Not that it was ever going to be the best movie ever, but even so, they're it's not going to be a huge splash in the water considering this this perfect triangle of talent.
Yeah.
And in that way, maybe that's the biggest disappointment of the movie.
Yeah. I've also described it as sort of a grander scale Spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I still prefer Spotlight because that had an intimate feeling, and it this didn't have as much of an intimate feeling to it.
Spielberg,
And I don't think he can at this point make a movie with an intimate feeling.
really.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not necessarily disagreeing. I still think he's one of the most talented directors of all time.
I mean, yeah, certainly.
And as we've praised with this movie, but it's a noticeable thing that I don't think I've enjoyed a blockbuster of his, a popcorn Spielberg, since I like War of the Worlds, but I didn't even really like it when it came out. That was more of a me thing. But
Okay. I didn't see that one. I think that and the BFG are the only two Spielberg movies of this century that I haven't seen.
yeah, I haven't seen the BFG either. I've liked most of the movies I have seen, but they tend to be the more Spielberg drama, the later Spielberg stuff, like Lincoln and Bridge of Spies, and obviously The Post.
Yeah, so we're talking about like popcorn Spielberg versus Prestige Spielberg.
Yes. And Prestige Spielberg is still running strong.
Yeah.
He's doing great.
Yeah,
He's
like
not,
I love Lincoln, I love War Horse.
maybe not reinventing the wheel,
yeah.
but the wheel is spinning fast.
Yeah.
Popcorn Spielberg, it's a tricky territory. He's the best of the best in aggregate. But, I mean, everything I know about Ready Player One just does not sound appealing.
Yeah, I'm not excited for it.
No, and it's not actually about Spielberg, it's about the movie itself, the content of the movie that seems like, whatever.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a tough space. I'm not super excited about that. And yeah, so I guess that's the big fault. Like, this is a solid movie, but because of the components of it, there's this sort of lost potential that it could have been great instead of being a solid good movie.
Yeah. If you weren't told Steven Spielberg directed it, would you have been able to tell?
I think so.
Okay.
It's still very Spielberg-y, and like to his credit, to his incredible talents, he has this ability to take such a dense, confusing, convoluted piece of history like the Pentagon Papers and package it into a way that you can comprehend, and more importantly, and transform it into this story that's applicable to today. I guess you're right in the sense that it does lose some of the complexities, and maybe that's what you were saying with the Spotlight comparison. It doesn't go as deep or specific or as intimate.
It also, one thing I really liked about Spotlight was it had like regional specificity, like, and I don't get that with the Post. Like, I don't really get the culture of Washington in the Post.
I think that more than anything, I think that comes probably from the quick turnaround, because this is a movie that's mostly in rooms and houses and board meetings, which it totally works. It's kind of like the smallest scale Spielberg we've had in a while, though.
Yeah.
I think that's a welcome refresher.
Yeah, certainly.
And good on Spielberg for doing this in the first place, because it could have been. I mean, he doesn't need to make. I mean, I'm sure he has a compulsion to make movies, but he didn't need to make this one. But it spoke to him, and I think in a way that, I keep going back and forth between kind of being disappointed by the lack of potential, but the fact that it's so. I don't know if it's. I want to raise it up to the point of it's a necessary movie for today, because I don't think this is going to change any people's minds, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I also don't know if it's going to do that much good to preach to the choir, but in the smallest sense, it's a good piece of contextualization for the situation we're in. At least personally, it was uplifting and like, it's gonna be okay.
And it's a reminder of like, this is what the First Amendment means.
What it's about.
Right.
And it's in that way, it's like, there have been two, I've said this to you specifically because you were at both events, but there's only been 2 times this entire year I felt patriotic, and one was watching The Post, and the other was when Sam the Eagle made me stand up for the national anthem. That's it. And like, I'm not down on America. Well, kind of. It's a complicated thing.
Yeah.
And Spielberg, kind of to go back to our big thesis statement in the finale Tomhanksgiving episode, Spielberg is kind of the perfect person to create the, I don't want to say the Disney-fied or the McDonald's version, but like sort of the idealized America. I guess that's because Tom Hanks kind of represents the idealized American in that way. And how there's definitely a flaw because it lacks a lot of the real life complexity and darkness that's behind it. I don't think that makes it a bad thing outright.
No.
I'm completely rambling now. Take us on a tangent, John.
Well, like going on the like Spielberg and America thing, I do think this pairs well with Bridge of Spies because they're both like deeply rooted in like one of the amendments in the Bill of Rights.
Yes.
Like Bridge of Spies is really based around right to a fair trial, and this one is about the First Amendment, freedom of the press specifically. And so I do want to see like kind of a Decalogue type of thing with Spielberg and Tom Hanks just doing one movie about every amendment in the Bill of Rights.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Although I kind of don't want to see the Right to Bear Arms movie.
That's true.
Yeah. Could just see him just reading the Constitution every night. Like, where's a movie
What's
in here?
the next one? And that seems like that kind of makes sense for like who Spielberg is. It's like I want to make a movie about history and like teach people the amendments and have a contextualization for it. But yes, let's talk about Liz Hannah because she wanted to write a movie about Kay Graham. She was at the Q&A as well.
Yeah, she basically had read Kathleen Graham's autobiography.
Yeah, which her book is called Personal History, and it won the Pulitzer Prize in 1998. So,
and this was her first screenplay.
Yes,
and
that was so wild to hear.
Like to get a first screenplay and like, oh, Spielberg's interested in it.
Yeah,
oh, Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep are gonna be in it. Like,
that's insane for your first movie.
Yeah,
like I'm super excited about where she goes, but at the same time, it's like number 2 is going to be a disappointment no matter what it is.
You're like, oh, Soderbergh? I don't know.
I can't wait to see what she writes next.
Should we talk about some of the other sort of people on the crew? Do you want to talk about Kaminsky, John Williams back?
Right, John Williams is back. This is his 28th collaboration with Spielberg. I remember feeling like it was not un-Williamsy, but it was different enough from the most significant Williams scores that I liked it.
Okay.
I don't think I'll be buying the soundtrack on iTunes or anything, but it was nice to see him back.
Good. Or hear him back.
Hear him back, yes. Janusz was a cinematographer.
I got kind of sick of him with Bridge of Spies.
How so?
Because it's just like, we get it, like, windows emit light.
They look good, though!
It just was too much.
You're alright.
And so he, like, dialed it back for this one, and I appreciated that. So.
Yeah. This one didn't feel, like, in a weird... It didn't look bad at all, but it didn't really feel lit it was lit, obviously.
Oh, it was lit AF.
But it didn't feel so painterly in a way. It was a little bit more reserved. So, ultimately, what do you think is the lesson we can take away from The Post? It's not the movie of the year. It's not going to change the world, but it's a significant movie. What can we do to make tomorrow better?
Believe women. Respect women.
Yep, that's for sure.
And respect the freedom of the press.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think those are important lessons that
very simple lessons.
Timely.
Very timely.
Yeah.
And I guess that ties us back into the wonderful Q&A we got. Or not, it wasn't really a Q&A, it was more... Well, it was a Q&A, but there was no audience questions.
Yeah, which is the best.
I hate audience questions at Q&As.
More of a question than more of a comment than a question.
And a 2-part question? God. Like, anytime there's a podcast where they do a live show, it's like, we're going to open up to the audience, like, done listening. Yeah. You'll never get that on this show. What the last question, actually, they ended on, I don't remember what the actual question was, but it was the moderator kind of posed, like, you know, based on everything that happened with this film and making this film and this real life story, how do you see the future of current politics and the Trump administration going? And Tom Hanks became the answer of this question. And it was just like this moment, because like, if there was going to be a chance for me to ask a question, I wanted to ask him something more significant about like America and the future and being a good person. And like, this is the best chance I was going to get. And he kind of gave me this huge answer, and this is what I thought was so optimistic, not just about the movie, but the whole experience, was he has total faith that, like, it might take a while, but just like what happened with Nixon, like, the truth will prevail is basically what it came down to. and Trump will go down. These lies will catch up with him. It might be, maybe it won't be Mueller, but he's gathering his info, and it takes time for this kind of stuff to happen, as it did with Nixon.
Yeah, he has like such faith in the freedoms given to us in the First Amendment that as like a cornerstone of what America stands for, that he doesn't believe it can crumble in that way. So like,
and there's
he believes it will win out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like personal experiences I've gone through this year and years past where it's just like I see that idealism and then feel how it's ignoring the systemic oppression for marginalized peoples of all sorts in general. But there was something about the way he put it and how it's about the First Amendment, which ties to the core of like everybody.
Yeah.
And I have faith in his faith. And it's like this is one where it's like it made me believe that we're going to be okay. And I don't feel that way a lot. Listen to our Band of Brothers episode, or don't if you want to be depressed. But it might take a little while, but I think we're going to be moving into a 2018 that's going to be better.
I hope so.
I hope so, but I trust that it will.
Okay.
And the only, actually, maybe that's a lie, because even though I feel better about, I think we're going to be better for America in 2018. And that's evidenced by, again, going back to all of the women speaking out and all of these corrupt, abusive men going down and like real consequences happening, and the media still fighting against the lies of the Trump administration. There are real consequences. So I think there's evidence to suggest that it is getting better even now, even as we're dealing with more and more shit every day. But the downside to 2018 is that, looking ahead, Tom Hanks has no projects coming out that year so far. The next thing on his docket is Toy Story 4, which won't be out until 2019. It's a year without Hanks.
Well, that just gives him the freedom to do whatever he wants.
Which is good.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance that he might pick up a project and it'll come out early.
Well, I mean, this turned around in 9 months.
You did. So there's a chance we'll have something. Or maybe he'll do a significant David S. Pumpkins or some television appearance again. And we also have, I don't know if we'll get to an episode about his book, but if nothing else, maybe I'll do an episode of that next year.
Do you think Spielberg cast him in the post just knowing, like, oh, we won't need to have to go gather a bunch of period-appropriate typewriters for them all over?
Yeah, they just use his personal collection. I think that's definitely a factor.
Yeah.
So we'll probably see that again in the future. But yeah, so that's what we have to look forward to. So don't forget to subscribe to TomHanksgiving. Even though we're not coming out with weekly episodes, there's a whole backlog of episodes. Every single Tom Hanks movie we've talked about. So listen to those, and mostly is to subscribe so that when we do have a new episode coming out, you won't miss it. Follow the show on Twitter at TomHanksPod for updates about coming up Tom Hanks movies or coming up podcasts. And you can follow me at Elvis Kaboom on Twitter and Instagram. John, do you have any social media to plug or anything you want to talk about?
I don't have anything personal to plug, but since I mentioned it earlier, I should give a recommendation to Nixon Land.
Yes,
a book by Rick Perlstein. I've been reading it. It's fantastic. It's scary how much it parallels modern times, but it's basically sort of how we got into this mess, looking at the rise of Nixon. Mm-hmm. And it's so thoroughly researched, so well written. And if you have any interest, like watching the post, into learning more about the Nixon administration, I can't recommend it enough.
It's the perfect complimentary piece. That's great. Yeah. So check out Nixon Land. Check out all our links. And check out The Post, which is in theaters now. And until next time, thanks for listening.
Tom Hanks, we fell in love with you, Tom Hanks, just like so many do, deeply, because you made us smile, and your great on-screen style. So that's why we give thanks, 'cause you got a friend in Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks.
What was your favorite color growing up, and what is it now?
I think it's always been blue.
Always blue. Why blue?
It just kind of pops to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your least favorite color?
Probably like dark green, because I'm kind of colorblind and I don't really know what dark green is.
So when you look at Godzilla over there, what do you see?
It's like, is that brown? Is that dark green? I don't know.
Interesting. It's definitely not brown.
Okay, I would have looked at it for a while and been like, I don't know.